Hi, Dave Littman, Truth in IT, and today I'm joined by Christoph Bertrand. Christoph is VP of Product Marketing with Arcserve. Christoph, welcome.
Thank you, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So thanks for joining us. Today we are talking about email archiving, why it's different from backup, and mitigating legal risk, because, these days it's not enough just to be an IT professional. Now we sort of have to be worried about governance and legality and all that. So explain to us a little bit about Arcserve UDP email archiving.
Yes. So first of all, we're focused on the mid-market at Arcserve, and one of the key requirements that we heard from our partners as well as our end users is the fact that they need email archiving. So we acquired the technology and have just rolled it out as essentially our UDP family solution for email archiving. It's a very easy to use solution that is really different from backup, because backup is really about disaster recovery, whereas here this platform is really about archiving for long-term retention, for compliance. You mentioned risk of legal threats or legal exposures, and there's of course also a technical reason why you'd want to do that, which could be associated with either storage reduction or migration, say, to an Office 365 environment in the cloud. So
okay.
Many different use cases.
Cool. One thing I wanted to add is we're going to be bringing on Mark Johnson in a minute. He's going to take us through a little bit of a tour because we kind of want to see, there's a whole different interface, right? It's a whole different look and feel from backup because we're doing a different thing, right? It's not just about sort of protecting data. It's about finding it, and it's about finding emails, and there's all sorts of different reasons and different ways to do that. So take us through a little bit about, what makes it different.
Yeah, so first of all, again, backup is about disaster recovery. So you back up an email box or a whole email system in order to recover it later when the time comes. Maybe there's some data corruption, maybe there's a ransomware attack, whatever the case may be. It's a disaster recovery or recovery scenario. The one thing that you can't really guarantee with this type of backup or this type of process is whether you've actually captured all of the emails. If I go and delete an email and then you go back up that mailbox, you won't see that email. It's as if it never existed. Well, that's an issue for compliance. That's an issue for legal search. You want to make sure that your emails are captured going in and, of course, going out, that all of them are going to be in the archive and that they are immutable, that they cannot be touched or changed by anyone until they expire, which is the retention policy that you can set to those emails. So there's a compliance dimension, the retention policy aspect, and there is also the legal search aspect. You're right. It's all about being able to search quickly and producing, based on keywords, what the results are in terms of the emails that have those words you're searching for, either preemptively or as a reaction to some legal situation. And you can't just do that with an email backup or a traditional tool that only focuses on email. It's just too painful, takes a long time. We have early adopters of our solution who've told us, look, I'm picking this solution because last year I had to do a search on an employee who had left the business, and it took me hours and hours and hours to produce what I hope was all of the emails that we needed. So that certainty, the operational costs, those are big ones.
Okay, and there is like this distinction that we're making between backup and deleting a file, right? So if you delete a file, you can purposely delete it and it can be gone. But with email archiving, you're putting the policy of deletion in the hands of a corporation that's saying, hey, once that communication comes in or out, you can't delete it. We've got an archive of it.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So the benefit is, of course, there are compliance rules and there are also some best practices, maybe some internal compliance rules as well. And as long as that email has not expired, it's not marked for deletion, or it's not placed on a legal hold status, for example, that email will never leave the archive. It cannot be modified by the end user. Now, as an end user, we can go archive years of your email and give you access through a simple Outlook plugin, which you'll see in the demonstration. to your emails that are archived, which is, by the way, a great way of offloading the storage system as well, because if you have 3, 4, 5 years of email on your server on premise, it's going to be great to be able to save up all of that storage by putting the older emails into an archive. And also, why would you keep all those emails from employees who may have left, whatever the case may be? It doesn't mean you can't search for them and you can recover them as an end user, as I said. The other point I want to make is also the fact that now a lot of people are going into cloud-based type of email solutions, Google Mail or 365, which of course we support. So you're not going to migrate all of your emails, especially the historical ones, into what is essentially a service that you pay by the mailbox. That wouldn't work. In addition, I think much has been said about those services online, but they don't do a good job of backing up, and they don't do a good job of archiving either, even if they offer options. I would say be cautious there. There are some compliance requirements, such as immutability, that are very important. So the benefit of archiving and ingesting up front is that you're only going to move those emails to the service, maybe 6 months, 2 months, whatever the case may be. So you limit your costs that way, and you still have access to your email. You can also store the archive on a cloud platform. We support multiple formats. It comes as a virtual appliance, so Hyper-V, AMI for our customers who use Amazon, of course, VMware also. So lots of options for customers to deploy on-premise or in the cloud.
Okay, great, Christophe. Well, why don't we bring on Mark and we can have a look at it. So let's just switch gears here a little bit. Mark, if you're there, why don't we fire up the demo and we'll switch we'll hand the baton over to you. So hang on, and we'll make that switch.
Thanks, guys. So as Christophe mentioned before, I'm going to log into the solution here as one of the pre-configured security roles within the solution. So keep in mind that the solution is managed via browser. As you can see, I'm just using Chrome today. And it can run on-premise or in the cloud as well. So I'm going to log in as Auditor. So Auditor is a role that basically has the ability to search across all the content in the archive, right, for all users. So let me log in as Auditor, right? And right away, you'll see some search tools, right? So as an Auditor, I'm going to basically be doing a couple different things, right? I can respond to very, very specific requests or court orders or whatever for message content information, right? Or maybe it's an HR issue and I'm looking for some very specific verbiage in the email. Mm-hmm. So if I look here and I hit advanced search, it gives me the ability to enter the information that I'm looking for. So I can search by to and from emails, from topic, and any of these fields here, I can use keywords, I can use Boolean strings, right? I can exclude or include. And keep in mind that we do a full text index of all the content as it's being ingested into the archive, whether that be the message or the attachment, right? So I can search by keywords in an attachment. So maybe I'm looking, maybe I'm an HR person. I'm looking to see if intellectual property is being sent outside the company or whatever, and I can search specifically on an attachment for some verbiage. We also have the ability to create tags and notes to associate with different message content. So, keep in mind as we're ingesting this in and we're associating this metadata, what we're really doing is we're creating a record, right, for every message that's in the archive. It does become a records management solution at that point. So I can associate tags and notes. So if I want to go back later and search by those notes or those tags that I've associated with the content, I can certainly do that. I can do a time or a date range for these, and I can include or exclude any of these fields in here that I want, right? So I can get very specific. I can look for email between two individuals, between a certain date range, with a certain attachment with a keyword in that attachment. So it gives me the ability to be very granular around how I search for that information, right? And once I do a search, I can come up with a list of hits right down here, right? If I click here, I can actually see the body of the messages that I've found in my search, right? And I can also pick and choose which ones I either want to download right? Or print. So I could print these out if I want to. I can download one or many. If I choose to download many, they'll be downloaded as EML files in a zip file format, and I can take and import those into any other email system for view. So if I wanted to pull those into a PST file or whatever, or I need to hand those off to my legal counsel, EML files are kind of a universally accepted or universally used message format, right? It's pretty common out there, even more common than PST files are today. And I always have the ability to save my search, right? So I can always go back and search later with the exact same criteria. In fact, if I go over here, maybe I have some saved searches. Yes, I have some searches with some specific content in them. So if I actually clicked on CNN, I could go back and research some message content that I had found previously. Right. And so keep in mind that from a user perspective as well, I mean, part of the beauty of the system is that users have the ability to access their own content with the same search tools, or they can search using a plugin applet for Outlook. But this really does give companies a very, very powerful tool to be able to respond to either compliance requests, compliance requirements, or legal requests as well. Right. And it also gives them the ability to keep a handle on their content, put very, very specific retention policies and legal holds on the content that is in the archive. So, for example, if I choose to change retention policies for users within my organization, I can certainly do that. It can be very granular. And again, if you're using this for legal or compliance reasons or whatever, you're always going to want to put content that may be in question on legal hold. And once we put it on legal hold, that will override any retention policies out there, so that information will not disappear due to retention disposition. And then we have an audit log. So everything that happens from the audit perspective is captured in this log. And if you see here, it's very detailed. It shows who logs in, who logs out, messages that are viewed, search descriptions, what was searched, right? And it creates a reference number that we can always go back to and refer to. So it's a fully auditable or a fully immutable audit log, I should say, that can be used in conjunction with turning over the information maybe for a legal issue.
One quick question for you, Mark, is if you come up with a search result and come up with a list of emails, can you flag some of them because for whatever reason they require additional review and make them visible to your colleague, for example?
Yeah, so example, that would be where you'd want to put a tag on there, right? So I could actually just create a tag. So if I was on a team of more than one auditor, let's say I go out and I do a search, I find a list of or a collection of emails that may want to be reviewed further, I could tag those emails and I could create a tag, and then the people on my team could always go out and search by that tag, and we could narrow that search down even more based on the content that's in those tagged messages. Okay. And I can also add notes to those to give maybe people on my team a heads up as to something that I'm seeing in there or what maybe the next steps might be.
Okay, fabulous. Christoph, anything additionally to add?
No, I think you've got a pretty good sense for what we can do. There are so many uses for these capabilities, but more importantly, what's important, what I want to point out is in terms of architecture, this is very modern. This, as you can see, really looks at the emails and attachments as objects. We've got a lot of efficiencies built in with a single instance store. So we don't store the same emails and attachments over and over again. I mean, you can think of, the mid-market, you have 500, 1,000, 2,000 employees, one email, big attachment, it'd be crazy, right? And the other thing we do is compared to there are other vendors out there who use stubs or stubbing as a technology, which is really inherited from the old days of HSM. It's pretty archaic, frankly, and it also creates a lot of inefficiencies, uses up a lot of storage, makes the backups a bit complicated. So, we talked about archiving and backup, but maybe I'd like to close on that, sort of close the loop and say, look, if you have an archive, like this one, this email archive, great solution. You can do a lot with it. But just think about how you're going to protect it. So in our Arcserve UDP offering, of course, we have backup and recovery as well. And we have a special plan where we can go back up the archive store as well. So not only do you have an archive where you can go do your searches for legal protection, legal purposes, whatever the case may be, but you're also going to have a backup of that store should anything come up to the actual system that holds the archive. It can be, I should also mention, this is a multi-tenancy solution. So if you have maybe an organization with multiple sub-companies or maybe in a vertically integrated sort of business where there are different rules that apply to different businesses, this is definitely a solution you can use as well. And we think our partners will also greatly benefit from those capabilities for those of them who want to become service providers with this solution.
Interesting. And one last question, Christoph, where does this actually install in the network?
Well, that's a good question. So actually, it comes as a series of virtual appliances. You have your choices. You can run this in Amazon if you want to. We have an AMI version of it, or Hyper-V or VMware. So very easy to deploy that way. And also, you can dynamically expand the underlying storage based on how the archive expands as you ingest. And I should also say we have a historical ingest capability. So think about it this way. If you have 3, 4, 5 years of email on your production server, you're not going to want to keep that forever. It's not a good use of your storage resources, may have potentially some impact on performance as well. So what you want to do is really ingest these historical emails into the archive. And what's really cool, while you've seen here the Auditor screen, we give the end users an Outlook plugin so they can just do it themselves. So they can go search themselves for the solution, for the email that they maybe have lost, or that attachment they've lost in the in the flood here, and go back for whatever time is available in the archive. The one thing I will say though is that again, in the archive, the end user does not have the ability to change the actual emails. Okay. That's very important, this immutability. And when you look at some of the extensions that exist out there and some of the online email services, they're not necessarily super compliant that way. And finally, if maybe you're migrating to 365, so having a tool that allows you to ingest all of those historical emails to only essentially leave a few months on the 365 environment, for example, is probably the way to go because cost is going to be a concern.
Okay. All right. Fabulous. Well, really appreciate you guys coming to show us the solution today. Christoph Bertrand, Mark Johnson with Arcserve. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Dave.
Very welcome. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks again.